The eviction notice clung to the door of Frank Russo's workshop, flapping in the harbor wind like a cruel joke. 37 years of labor, love and salt air reduced to 30 days' notice. The marina had once been alive with laughter and diesel fumes, its docks crowded with fishermen and tourists, its heart beating to the rhythm of engines Frank could fix in his sleep. But time had stripped it bare. His wife, Rose, had been gone 3 years now, taken by cancer that no wrench or prayer could repair. Her wedding ring, loose on his finger, was the only thing that still fit. Frank spent his mornings turning it absently, his mind circling debts, his daughter's nursing tuition, and the hollow ache of silence. He'd given Sarah every dollar he could, even borrowed against Rose's life insurance, yet still it wasn't enough. When the familiar groan of the workshop door echoed, the smell of oil and salt filled his lungs like memory. Then came a sound he hadn't heard in months, the uneven cough of an engine fighting to stay alive. Out on the misty water, a yacht limped toward his dock. Its name, painted in soft gold, read Second Chance. Frank didn't yet know it, but that boat was about to change everything. The yacht slid into harbor haven like a wounded animal, elegant but faltering. A woman stood at the bow, posture rigid, eyes like the ocean before a storm. Marina Valdez. Even Frank, who rarely looked beyond his own shoreline, recognized her name. She'd built a shipping empire from nothing, but rumor said grief had hollowed her after her son Miguel drowned in a sailing accident. She climbed onto the dock, calm but tired, her voice steady as she said, 3 mechanics couldn't fix it. Frank wiped his hands on a rag, studying the vessel's trembling hull. Mind if I try? She hesitated, not from doubt, but from surprise that he'd even ask. In his cluttered workshop, Frank worked like a man half his age, tracing wires, tapping bolts, listening to the machine breathe. The hybrid system hummed like a confused heart. No diagnostic screen could tell him what his ears already knew. A simple misalignment, a crushed gasket choking its balance. He cut a replacement from an old wetsuit, fitted it with quiet precision and said, "Try her now." Marina turned the key. The engine caught, smooth and sure, purring with new life. She stared at him, stunned. "What do I owe you?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "Any boat named Second Chance deserves one." She smiled faintly, the first in years, and handed him a card. "You'll be hearing from me, Mr. Russo." For 3 days, Frank heard nothing. Then life struck its next blow. A letter from Sarah's nursing school arrived. A thin envelope carrying heavy news. Scholarship revoked. $8,000 due. Frank sat in the dim light of his cottage, his hands trembling around the paper. He thought about Rose's jewelry box, her engagement ring, the pearl necklace, the diamond earrings. Selling them would cover the tuition, but it would also mean selling the last fragments of her. His pride had always been his armor, but now it felt like a prison. He visited the bank, hoping for mercy. None came. Even old Pete, the retired lobsterman who'd seen the marina through its glory days, couldn't find words that would help. That night, as the tide whispered against the docks, Frank walked out beneath the lighthouse beam and stared into the dark water. The ring on his finger felt heavier than ever. Somewhere beyond the fog, the Second Chance was out there. And so was the woman who had seen something in him that he hadn't seen in himself for a long time. Worth. When the headlights swept across the gravel drive, Frank turned. Marina Valdez stepped out of her car, moonlight glinting off a small brass compass in her hand. "Mr. Russo," she said softly, "I have a proposition for you." Marina set the compass on his workbench. "It belonged to my son, Miguel," she said. "He was studying marine engineering before the accident. He loved boats the way you do. He believed they had souls." Her gaze moved across the workshop, the rusted lift, the leaking roof, the photographs of Frank and Rose restoring old vessels with proud smiles. He would have loved this place. Then she unrolled a set of faded blueprints. Frank froze. He recognized Rose's handwriting immediately. The marina expansion plans she'd sketched decades ago, complete with notes for classrooms, workshops, even an apprenticeship program. "I found these in your wife's files," Marina said. "What if we brought this to life? A place where young people can learn these crafts before they disappear." Frank shook his head. "That's a dream." "Dreams cost money," Marina met his eyes. "Then let me fund it. Not as charity, as partnership." Frank looked at her, a woman rebuilding her life through grief, offering to save his in the process. Outside, the tide rolled in, gentle but relentless. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the universe gives us a second chance. We just have to take it." 3 days later, Marina returned, holding a worn leather journal. "It was Miguel's," she said, setting it on the table. The pages smelled faintly of salt. Inside were notes, sketches, and photos, all of Harbour Haven. Miguel had visited before his death. He'd written about Frank Russo, the mechanic who listens to engines like they're speaking to him. He'd wanted to create a foundation that preserved dying marinas, starting with this one. "He was planning to contact you," Marina said through tears. Frank turned the pages slowly, reading Miguel's plans for scholarships, workshops, and education programs. The words blurred as his throat tightened. "He already saw it," Frank murmured. "Everything Rose dreamed of," Marina nodded. "So you see, Mr. Russo, this isn't coincidence. It's continuation." For a long moment neither spoke. The workshop's silence was broken only by the creak of the harbour dock. Finally, Frank placed his weathered hand on the compass. "Then let's finish what they started," he said. Outside, the fog lifted, revealing the horizon and the faint promise of dawn. Weeks turned into months. The once empty marina became a symphony of hammers, saws, and laughter. Crews rebuilt the docks, craftsmen restored the workshop, and young volunteers, students, dreamers, wanderers arrived to help. The Harbour Haven Marine Education Center was born, merging Rose's design with Miguel's research. Marina's company funded it quietly, but her heart stayed anchored there. She visited daily, walking the shoreline with Frank, her grief slowly transforming into purpose. Sarah returned home to see it all, tears shining in her eyes. "Mom would have loved this," she said, hugging her father. Frank nodded, his throat too tight for words. For the first time in years, he didn't wake with dread. Each morning brought new purpose, teaching apprentices, telling stories, passing down the craft that had defined his life. When the new sign was finally raised, Harbour Haven, where craft meets legacy, the crowd clapped. But Frank's eyes drifted to the horizon. Somewhere out there, he hoped Rose and Miguel were watching. Maybe in some quiet corner of eternity, they already knew. The grand opening felt like resurrection. Sunlight shimmered off the water, bouncing across the freshly varnished docks. Hundreds gathered, local fishermen, journalists, students, and old-timers who remembered Harbour Haven's glory days. Marina took the podium first. 3 months ago, she began, I came here with a broken engine and a broken heart. A man fixed both, not with money but with kindness. Her voice cracked just once. This place now stands as proof that craftsmanship, compassion, and courage still matter. When she introduced Frank, applause rippled like a tide. He stepped up slowly, holding Miguel's compass in one hand, Rose's ring in the other. My wife once dreamed this marina could teach the world something. That fixing isn't just about tools, it's about patience, pride, and love. My friend Miguel saw that too. And this, he said, gesturing to the crowd, this is their dream brought back to life. The audience rose to their feet as the ribbon was cut, releasing cheers that echoed across the harbour. The lighthouse beam swung lazily through the dusk, marking not an ending, but a beginning. 6 months later, Harbour Haven thrummed with purpose. The workshop glowed with the hum of engines, the chatter of students, the smell of salt and steel. Sarah ran the classrooms with her mother's warmth, while Frank taught the art of listening, to machines, to people, to life itself. Marina visited often, always carrying Miguel's compass, which she now used to guide each new apprentice toward their own true north. The marina had become more than a business. It was a living monument to second chances. One evening, as the sun sank beyond the breakwater, Frank stood at the end of the dock, the wind lifting his silver hair. He looked out over the harbor, boats bobbing, laughter rising, lights shimmering like stars. "You did it, Rose," he whispered. "We all did." The compass in Marina's hand swung gently toward home. Together, they watched the lighthouse beam cut across the waves, a steady rhythm in a world that kept moving. And somewhere deep inside, Frank understood what all those engines had been trying to tell him all his life, that even the broken things, if cared for enough, can run again. If this story touched you, if you believe in second chances, in love that outlasts loss, and in the quiet heroism of those who keep fixing what others give up on, share this story. Leave a comment and subscribe for more cinematic tales that remind us, sometimes the most powerful engines are the human heart.